Hey, Danielle, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Wonderful. Hey, Pete, could you put the volume in this room up just a little bit so we can hear Danielle a little bit louder? Danielle, can you keep talking? I'm in for a phone.
Absolutely, I can keep talking. Hello, hello.
All right.
Okay,
You're doing
great.
keep
Thank
talking.
you.
Get you to an audible level. We can hear you, but just barely.
Okay, I'll try to be a little bit louder too. Thank you.
All right. Is that loud enough?
Yeah.
I think we're good. Thanks, Danielle.
No worries.
I'm good. All right.
Danielle added, I think, since Carlos season will step back. Do you know Danielle yet?
No,
Oh,
and
Hi.
Gabriel is new as well. So let's
Nice to
wait
meet you
until
all.
6 o'clock on the nose. I get to facilitate today's meeting. We rotate facilitation duties in this group, and it's my turn, but next time someone else can step on up and be that person. And item 1 on our agenda is welcome and introduction. So welcome to new committee members. Gabriel, welcome Danielle. So glad that you are both a part of this committee. And I think since many of us are new to many of us, let's go around and do just a moment of introduction. Who are you? And anything that you'd like to share about yourself and your sort of reasons that you said yes to being part of this committee. Would anyone like to begin?
I'll begin.
Thank you.
I'm Gabriel Frey, past party basket maker, massage therapist. I said yes to being part of the committee because I've been working with the town to basically utilize the city forest for teaching black ash basket making, and when I was asked, I figured my responsibility.
Great.
Yeah.
And I'm Doug Johnson, and I guess most of you know I'm retired from the university, where I spent a long career there in the counseling center, and paid a lot of attention to issues of diversity and inclusion as the director of the center, and also have a daughter in town who has multiple disabilities, who walks these streets every day, and so sensitive to those kinds of issues too. And as a mental health practitioner, sensitive to diversity when it comes to mental illness also. And thought I might have something to offer.
My name is Malcolm Himshoot, he, him. I live in Orono for the past few years and co-pastor the Open and Affirming Church in town, which is Church of Universal Fellowship. And the social justice commitments of that congregation, I think, led some people to encourage/invite me to bring that public voice on the town committee, which had just been created out of research. No, it must have led up to the research, but the research that was done in 2021, I was part of that listening group. And the big thing we heard was that there should be a standing committee for further listening. So I wanted to follow up on that.
Good to see you.
That's it.
All right. Michael, yeah, where would you like to sit? Park yourself here. Let me get this little chair out of the way.
Appreciate
Of course. I'm glad you're here. The email that I had for you bounced and didn't go through. And so
Yeah.
I was worried that you might not have known about tonight's meeting, but I'm glad you remembered
reached out
it.
to Sophie
Good.
about the email thing, so I was
Great.
able to get it. Yeah, because I guess Nancy was sending it to a different email.
Okay. So we should have a new email on file
Yes.
for you.
Yep.
Wonderful. You've so far missed just a couple of introductions. So this is Gabriel Frey, new committee member. You know Doug and Malcolm already.
Yep.
And you're next in the row of introductions. So it's just who are you? You can share your pronouns if you'd like, and what motivated you to be on this committee?
Sure. Okay. I am Michael. I usually use they, them, or he, him. I kind of joke that that's a business pronoun. Um, I was motivated to join the committee because I was looking for the best way to get involved in my community. I think that moving to Orono was it was very different for me moving from where I had. I'm about 5 states away from my origin point. So it was sort of like I wanted to get back into the advocacy work that I was doing originally in college. I worked for the Pride Center at my university, Eastern Connecticut State University. And that was like a huge source of pride and joy for me. And so I was really passionate about that. And I was looking for better ways to connect to my community because I had felt kind of isolated, not really having a way to fully integrate myself in kind of any other way. And I saw this position open and I actually probably spent like 2 full days on like writing all of my answers for all of the like questions that I'd asked for the application. And I was super passionate because I wanted to both invest myself in queer culture and queer advocacy, but also disability culture and disability advocacy. I'm an ambulatory wheelchair user, so I'm in a wheelchair sometimes and not in a wheelchair other times. But I primarily work with kind of a range of mobility aids. And it's been something that has brought me a huge source of joy. I think it's definitely been something that has been really rewarding to see like, all right, let's take this thing that's in its infancy and like, let's push it to the next level. I'm so excited to see that we've gained new members and that we have new representative bodies. Like that's my favorite thing ever. I'm so glad.
Awesome. I'm Sonia Berthasell. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a member of the town council. So I'm the liaison to the town council who tries to make sure that I report what salient things are talked about here to the council and sort of vice versa. And I'm really passionate about equity and inclusion work, in part because in my day job, I serve as director of the Wilson Center down the road and work a lot with folks from different faith traditions, as well as all different parts of the world. And we try to be a place that connects across difference. And that is something that I'm really passionate about. Thank you.
Love the program.
To you, Carlos.
Hi, I'm Carlos. I use he, him pronouns. Currently, I am a sophomore international student from Mexico at the university. I'm a psych major and also soon to be WGS major as soon as I remember to actually, remember to actually say that I'm gonna go into it and declare it. Because I known since my first semester I was gonna be a WGS major, I just keep forgetting how to declare it. And
Paperwork's tricky.
It's paperwork. It's a lot of bureaucratic.
Yeah. And so in high school, I was my GSTA president. And I was also very involved with social justice work. And so when I learned that I could also volunteer in the town of Orono to a larger scale compared to school, I decided, you know what, let's just jump into this. And here I am.
I'm Emily. I work at the bike shop in town. And I've lived in Orono for a while since I graduated from the university there. Yeah, I feel like I've got a lot of time and energy to invest in my community, and I feel like it's very important for me. Member of the queer community, big part of my life. Yeah, I'm very glad to be here.
Awesome. Very glad to have you here. And Danielle, who is joining us on Zoom. Welcome. Would you like to introduce yourself? You're muted.
But help if I'm muted. Hello, everyone. I'm Danielle Gabrielli, and I'm actually a professor at the University of Maine. I use she, her pronouns, and the reason why I'm here is because I decided to join for a couple of my identities. First of all, I think about my own link to identity into Indigenous culture. I think about my link that I have for my African American culture. I think about the fact that I identify as LGBTQ. I think about the fact that I teach diversity courses and just really seeing the lack of knowledge that a lot of our students have coming through here at the University of Maine about diversity and what this is and what this means. And so in that role, it's been really great to be able to be a part of that. And I just really feel that I have a heart for diversity, and I decided to be here because I feel like I can learn so much from all of you, and hopefully you can gain some things from me. So thank you.
All right. And friends who are joining in the audience, if you want to quickly introduce yourselves too, feel free.
I'm Jeff Wingard. I'm also on the town council with Sonia and Sarah, and I've been involved in DEIB stuff for a while, partially as a faculty trainer in my professional world, and an advocate for inclusion on Orono Town Council.
I'm Lori Carpenter. I'm the director of the library and also a representative for the town for DEI and the work that the town is doing. I'm really pleased that we're moving forward for staff, working on some diversity and equity issues.
Sarah Marks, I'm also on the town council here in Orono. Recent DEI work, primarily with the Welcoming Immigrant Neighbors group in Frankfurt. And then to our area, New Mainers, Ray, previous director of the Wilson Center. Nice to be here.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody. So the next thing on our agenda is some report outs from subcommittees who met over the last month when we were kind of on vacation and a lot of town staff was on vacation. So we had two subcommittees. There was one that met to plan or start envisioning what a barbecue celebration welcome back to school event might look like. And then a second that met to talk about listening sessions and opportunities to learn more from a broader range of folks in the community. So I guess I'd open it up to either of those subcommittees that wants to go first. Danielle, are you interested in giving a little report out about what you and I chatted about?
I just wanted, like, I think pretty much about the barbecue. Is that what you're referring to?
Yep.
Yeah, so in terms of the barbecue, we had talked about having a space that was really felt natural to people in terms of just allowing them to come in, grab a bite to eat. Some of the places that I really was hopeful to really get to are particularly to advertise through Hannaford, through other areas such as, you know, those that typically do not have representation. I've also thought about in terms of finding a way to have the bus tie into this so that it can operate so that people can actually get there. Sometimes people have issues getting around town without a car. I'm one of them. And just from what I'm understanding is we really want to help those who are new to town, particularly in this aspect, because I remember being new to town. Someone else spoke about being new to town tonight, and it makes it really challenging when you see a lack of diversity and a lack of support. So I feel as though if we were to find some ways to make this possible for everyone to feel and be invited into a space that is feeling safe for them, that might be really helpful. And I really know that we had spoken about having some literacy activities possibly for the children. And in one of my classes, I actually am teaching a literacy course. And so some of those students may be willing to volunteer if we needed some extra support.
Awesome. Yeah, we had a really fun brainstorming conversation, and because of the sort of timing of various things, didn't really propose a date for exactly when this should be during the month of September, because September is pretty busy coming out of most staff being on vacation for the month of August.
Yeah, we're
But
already in September.
Since Danielle and I had our initial conversation, a piece of information that's useful to know is that the town council is now planning a monthly series of potlucks that would be opportunities to bring the town together. So if we want to, there could be a possibility to partner with them and be the sort of featured group on one of their potlucks, and then make it kind of what the DEIB committee would like in terms of a really sort of intentional welcome to folks who maybe need more of an explicit welcome, and we could publicize it to the bus and the international students on campus, and be really trying to get the word out in an intentional way. So I'm curious what folks think about that as, do we want to do a separate standalone barbecue event, or should we co-opt the town council's existing infrastructure with their permission if they'd like that?
I would like that idea.
Cool.
Yeah, one of the things I think that is really important for us kind of as a structure that's sort of still very much in its infancy, maybe it's toddlerhood, if you will, is I think that we do have to sort of lean on, like realistically lean on pre-existing structural units like the town council in order to kind of like get things going, because while I think that a standalone thing is nice, I do think at the kind of stages that we're currently in, it is slightly unrealistic. And so I think kind of being a feature, like a feature point, where we kind of like raid the town council's potluck, I think that tends to be a little bit more realistic if the town is okay with it. Because I think that definitely sort of playing on existing structures definitely benefits us a lot more.
Sure.
Plus, that's already, it's already a food event, so like,
Yeah.
it's not as if there's. It's not as if we're taking like a book club and making it like a food event.
Yeah.
It's already like a food thing that
Yeah.
exists. I think I absolutely love the idea of getting the I already forget what the bus is called, something connector.
Community connector.
Yeah, community connector,
Mhm.
which I think is such an apt name for things, especially for what we're doing here. I think that I'm not sure about their overseeing, like, I don't know who is in charge of that.
It's brand new, right? Could we hear more about those monthly
Yeah,
potlucks?
does,
But the
do
bus, like.
either of you
Oh,
folks
I
want
don't
to?
know who's bus.
I don't know who's in charge of the bus, so like, I assume we would have to have some sort of.
We
radio
could find
about
that
it.
out. We could
Yeah.
find it out.
Definitely something we should, because I do think that accessibility is a huge feature, and I do think that Orono is somewhat walkable, but I do think that with the stretches between certain things, especially between like the university and downtown, that's a huge thing. And I absolutely love that Danielle's idea is to get the bus involved, to get people to have higher accessibility. Like, that's probably my favorite thing, because that's such a great thing for people who both just don't want to walk that far, but also for folks like me.
Yeah.
Mhm. Because weren't the potlucks on a Sunday?
They are on a Sunday, which the bus does not run on Sunday, and so that's I'm really glad this committee exists, because this is part of the point, is like, aha, you have just identified a hole in our brilliant scheduling.
Wonder who else in town, what other organizations have vans, or
Yeah.
buses, and might consider helping. We should think about that.
We should think about that and make, when the DEIB committee does our one of the
Yeah.
potlucks, or let's decide on that first, maybe. Could we do kind of a show of thumbs, like we like the idea of taking over one of the town council's potlucks versus we want to talk more about this? Okay, great. So all systems go with that concept. Does that feel all right to other town councilors? I thought you'd like it. And then, yeah, I guess that's an important step, is how do we make sure that this could be accessible to people for whom public transit is how they get around. And
Is it set that it is on Sundays?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
already been publicized at this point. I think that's pretty set. We were just saying the RSU would be worth reaching out to about vans and transportation.
Yeah.
Would you envision running like
Bus.
from the university to the center of
University
town, or
also.
what other routes are we
Yeah,
thinking?
that, just
Let's think.
having organized a few things that the university has a number of vans.
Yeah, that was what I was gonna
International
say.
Students Organization could
Just like,
sponsor
Affordable.
those, Office of Diversity and Inclusion.
Did you guys already discuss what the dietary restrictions, accessibility is gonna be like?
No.
We didn't yet.
That's
Feel
that's
free
a
to
little bit-
ask
Yeah, that's definitely.
elicitive questions on the
So
subject.
my wife is gluten-free and my kids have all kinds of food allergies.
Yeah, we would
So-
definitely work as hard as possible to offer like definitely multiple ranges, cause I have. Like, I'm surprised I'm not the equivalent of like a chihuahua when it comes to like dietary restrictions. So I totally understand where you're at. And I think that that would definitely be something that when we were working on like the more specifics.
I always find that challenging whenever we go anywhere,
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
a whole food kit.
Right.
yeah, one
it's a
thing that
potluck,
we
yeah.
did talk about when the town council was planning the potluck series is making sure that there are little placards and being able to write, here's what's in the dishes, so
Yeah,
that
the
makes it
ingredients,
easier to
right.
vet, but it also, I think when Danielle and I had been brainstorming, it can be nice to also, it's possible that if we're doing a little bit of a bigger event, that's the DEIB committee's kind of welcome and celebration event as part of this series, that we could think about doing some extra food provision, and if so, there would certainly be space to craft a menu that that would work for a lot of dietary restrictions that we can think of and are aware of.
Yeah, and I think that it would probably be really good to have someone who can highlight some of possibly the
Yeah.
less common food restrictions, because obviously there's a good amount of eyes on like gluten-free, but maybe not some other restrictions.
I'd
And
also
I
like-
think
oh,
you're beneficial to give us a chance to talk about like what does accessibility look like for everyone in a food related space?
Jump in.
Danielle, go
I'm
for
sorry, I
it.
think this is lagging. I apologize. Yeah, so I was just thinking about the fact that, you know, when I mentioned to people how proud I am to be on this committee, people are like, there's no diversity here. And I think about my experience when I went it was last year, I think a couple months ago, to something called Step Africa. And I saw so many people that were from diverse backgrounds there. And I'm like, no, we do have diversity. We're just not getting we're not advertising, we're not bringing people forth as we should. And so I just want to like think about, as we engage in these events, creative ways that we can really engage and bring people in, because they're here, we're just feeling very isolated. Thank you.
Who
Yeah.
put on that event that you went to?
I'm sorry.
Who put on that event that you went to?
It was at the Calling Center, so it was Step Africa, and Step Africa is a step group that it's a wonderful experience, but a lot of people of color were there from Orono, and I kept talking to people, and unfortunately in that they had extra security, which I did not quite understand, but that didn't sit right with me. But other than that, you know, it was a great event.
I'm wondering if a next step could be like, let's choose a date with the town council and then maybe get a subcommittee of folks who's interested in doing the next step of brainstorming a little bit more to be willing to meet sometime between now and next meeting and flesh out some details and do some promotion. Does that seem like a good way forward?
I could be kind of the forefront for a culinary and promotional subcommittee.
A culinary and promotional
So
subcommittee.
drafting a menu that I'd love to take you on with that as well, if possible, for the culinary bit.
Mhm.
And I feel like I did okay with our last promotional
Mhm. Yeah,
graphics
your
that I
flyer
did.
was wonderful. Does anyone else want to be on kind of a subcommittee to envision this a little bit more? I'm happy to be part of it too.
Thanks.
Me and Michael,
Oh,
Danielle,
Danielle's up.
great. We got 3. All right.
Ideas?
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
the date is something that came up.
I was
right?
gonna say, Sonia, I have some of the flyers in my.
Oh,
book. You
awesome.
could pass them
Yeah.
on.
We have some of those in, yeah.
You actually, I
Thank
brought
you.
to
Okay.
you folks, because I would love for
Awesome.
each of you to, you know, take one and put it in your favorite place that you'd like people to hear about this.
Okay.
And tell the story, like, where did this come from? beautiful, you know,
Yeah,
beautiful things
yeah,
come
what
from
was
somewhere.
what was the?
The nexus of the
Inspiration
community
for the
potluck
potluck.
idea, I
Yeah.
can't remember whose idea it was. It was I think it was Sarah's idea. This is a great idea, Sarah.
So it's first
Uh,
Sundays.
First Sundays of the month. The idea is, we, the town council, would love to have more people involved and engaged and providing input. And we've noticed that the town council meetings tend to be pretty detail heavy and pretty long and are not really a like fun and accessible format that's great for people to come and chat and share their ideas. And so the idea is, let's make it easy and great to come and chat and share your ideas. So Sarah had this great idea for community potlucks and we're off to the races.
Love.
And we can also come up with our own that's sort of like the DEIB committee as the featured group at the community potluck. Here's the explicit
Potluck
welcome.
spotlight.
Yeah. So dates for this,
First Sundays.
when do we want to do it? I think there's already, the first one is coming up October 1st, which I think there's already a sort of plan for as a kickoff event, but I think anything thereafter, correct me if I'm wrong, could be us. Should we do November?
Yeah, I'd love to really start in like as soon as possible. If y'all are. Cause I think between now and November, there would definitely be a generous enough time to give us. Sort of enough time to just
Yeah.
get things off the ground and get everything in order.
So that would be November 5th. Does November 5th work for everyone? As far as we know? As far as we know?
Yep.
Okay, great.
I mean, as long as my friends and I don't all of a sudden plan something for Day of the Dead, which is like first day of that week,
Ooh, okay.
which we could also
is
join.
Sunday.
Huh?
The 5th is Sunday.
Yeah, but like we have school
Mhm.
and I don't know if my friends wanna do like something like Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
So,
Do you think it would be better to try for December or do you wanna
I mean,
go ahead and
if,
schedule it?
I mean, let's just do it by the 5th, and if nothing happens, I'll just like be sorry, I can't make it.
Also, at the potlucks, we're planning to have like kids activity.
Yeah,
area,
just reading, live music.
kind of Stuff, and so like Day of the Dead is a great holiday, in my experience of living in the Southwest, to bring stuff to share. Like music and sugar skull.
Like, could you get your
and
friends
art
there?
Things and all of that, so you could also go nuts on bringing a ton of Day of the Dead stuff to share if you want.
Good, and I could even work like, we could even.
We can make it Day of the Dead theme.
We could also like talk
That's
to like
true.
the OIP.
Yeah.
I can do face painting.
That would be. Kid, I would love that. That would be the best thing we could bring.
That sounds good.
Even why, like, I'm cutting the line, I'm getting my face painted first.
All right, all
Facts
right.
though.
If we do it the day of it, if seems I could even like. We could even talk to OIP and help us organize it to like. To reach out to other Mexican students within. The university and help us bring stuff over.
Carlos, do you want to join our little planning subcommittee if you're feeling some energy around this?
Sure, I guess.
Okay, cool. All right, so Danielle, Michael, me,
Also, that means
and
when Halloween
Carlos
paint goes on sale,
will-
we can
will
hoard some.
meet.
No, I got this really expensive organic coconut oil face paint. Cause our kids
Ooh,
just love to have their face painted all the time.
That's
So,
awesome.
I mean, I don't
That
blame them.
means you must have like a science. for
Well,
that.
I'm
Kids like
I'm
it.
really excited for the direction that this is headed. This seems really wonderful. And I also want to be mindful of time. So if there aren't,
Just a couple of things.
Yes.
I think the timing of it's good because midterms are over.
Mhm.
We're not under the pressure of.
Everybody gets to
finals.
breathe.
And I'd be willing to, since I know some of these people, reach out to International Student Program,
Right.
ODI, the Deans of Students Office, and the person in charge of student orgs, which would include things like the Black Union and Black Student Union. I could just reach out to them and talk about transportation
Great.
and having those offices see if they can arrange that, and then I'll report that back to.
Yeah, I think student affairs is probably
Yep.
who's in charge of those vans. That tends to be who it is in most universities.
Andrea Gifford would be the.
Yeah,
that's great, Doug. Thank you so much for doing that
Awesome.
legwork.
Doug, or Sonia or whoever, do you guys want to ask about transportation for all the potlucks or just for the November one? It's,
Well, there's a really good idea.
Mhm.
I would think maybe all, if they're up for it, would be great.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
I think that'd make a great kind of boost for the town council as well, obviously. Because it kind of gives you guys that extra like accessibility.
I don't know the status of the cost. There may be a cost to the departments to do that, so I don't know if the town could help with that too. I'll find out.
Yeah, I've worked with universities in the past because I've been on like other bodies that have worked with universities on transportation. And it tends to be if there's usually like some kind, when they bill like clubs and stuff like that, it tends to be like a flat fee and then gas mostly. So like, that's probably what we would have to look at most, is like that
Yeah.
type of thing.
Something to look into. All right, are we ready now to pivot to the second subcommittee report out, which is envisioning what listening sessions might look like? And I know, Emily, you'd
Yeah.
shared a doc with us. Wanna,
Yes, I did. I shared it in the email chain. I hope it didn't get lost in the abyss. There's a bunch of emails in there.
Yeah.
But I'll just go over this real quick. So Malcolm and I had a great conversation. We thought of some goals and then Malcolm made this great table, just to kind of put everything together. So the goal is have 6 to 8 conversations over probably just as many months. And follow a goal of following the energy and the purposefulness. That's what Malcolm said, quote, that I think that's pretty meaningful. Following the energy feels good. And the intent is for the listening to be ongoing. So we're not just going to end it with one session. And so some things to talk about for each of we thought of a bunch of target groups to listen to. So for each listening session, there'd be a topic. There would be a venue that we would choose purposefully to be comfortable and safe, accessible. Just ask people where they'd like to be. And then the important part of the listening session to both of us felt like the next steps. What can the town of Orono be doing after this conversation? So it's not just like, here's an event session and then we're not going to do anything about it. So some groups we thought of, first one, Penobscot Nation, Wabanaki. That feels like the most important, based off some other conversations we had. Also Indigenous Peoples Weekend's coming up. So there's lots to talk about there. Some more detailed stuff in the
Plus that emails that Sophie sent out was definitely a great highlighter for the talking about like talking to the Penobscot Nations groups.
yeah, and really appreciate Sarah did a lot of research and talking to folks who'd been involved with the town council sort of in the past through the process of how the signage in town got changed and understanding what that process was like and some of the repair work that might need to come out of it. And so really appreciate you sharing that with us.
some other groups we thought of, a campus focused conversation, international students, anybody at the university. Conversation focused on people of color, and especially Malcolm pointed out people of color who have left Orono or are thinking of leaving Orono, because that seems like a big problem. The original DEI survey talked about this.
And I see Danielle nodding along.
A family focused conversation, or we tied that into a religious conversation, specifically for Muslim immigrants who have kids in schools, because there seem to be some problems with kids in schools being targeted and bullied. An ability focused conversation, so that would focus on accessibility through physical spaces in town. Thought of some things for that. Queer focused, town labor force focused one, especially with that recent unionization effort. Yeah, we got a lot of good ideas here, but not very many specifics. But feel like some if we just work at one conversation at a time, we don't have to do it all at once, obviously, but timing is important, venue is important, and the topic.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, I appreciate the work you did. It's really good. And what I was thinking about as you were talking, because many different of the conversations would be ones that we can partner with someone on campus to bring them in. Sarah Jacques, and I think would be one, but I wonder at some point to maybe invite some of those folks to a meeting to discuss this and flesh it out a little bit for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like thinking broadly, but also wanting to make it actionable. We kind of created the table with the topic and the timing, the venue, and this co-sponsor idea all to be filled in. So that when they get clear enough on all of that, then we're ready, and that is the conversation that we can have.
It's a great formatting tool as well. I think it helps us kind of keep a clear mission on this, and this. And I think it also means that when we sort of approach an organization or a representative body, it also sort of gives us a sort of, wow, they're taking this seriously kind of edge. Which I think benefits.
Sorry. I would like to actually, if it's possible in this work, to make sure that voices that are in power are represented. And the reason why I asked that is because my first year at the University of Maine as a student, I had 2 mentors who were African American women, and I looked up to them very much, and they were very powerful in the university, and the next year they were gone. So there's several stories like that of people that that had like extreme higher up power that just completely leave to another state or another university. And I would really just kind of add that, not just any voice, but also voices that are marginalized, but also voices that are powerful and that have had a great voice in our community.
I'd love to get like kind of further ideas on like powerful voices in the university space, because I think that as you are integrated into the university space, I would love to know, like, from kind of your eyes, what do you think like is important, and who do you think that we should be highlighting kind of in this like in this effort to bring people who are both marginalized and in power kind of to the forefront?
I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna give a name of somebody that was a mentor to me for a very long time. Well, it felt like a long time. I adored her. Her name was Dr. Kimberly Whitehead. And from some of the conversations that I had with her, I was aware of the fact that, for example, people take this for granted. To get our hair cut here, it's nearly impossible to find any place to go, especially for African American hair, and anyone that has, you know, different hair types. It's really difficult to have those places. So I know, like, my other mentor would fly to New York just to get her hair done and stuff like that, that people take for granted. And there's a lot of experiences like that on campus and things that I personally have noticed. And the biggest one would be of isolation. We feel alone. We don't see representation of ourselves on campus. And so it is very discouraging, especially I would speak from that power aspect as being a professor, one of the only professors on campus of color. I can honestly say that is quite challenging, I'd say.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Danielle. So I'm wondering what kind of the next steps in this process look like. Is this another thing where we can sort of take it forward to another subgroup conversation and be moving ahead, filling in some of the other pieces in that chart? And or does someone else have kind of another suggestion for what the next step might be?
I mean, I think starting with approaching some of the groups to fill in some of, or like maybe some subcommittee brainstorming to kind of fill in Malcolm and Emily's chart, because I think that obviously like having like enough focused intention, I feel like will give us a good way to kind of approach that. I think we should start with maybe kind of focusing our energy into one, like what do we want our first listening session to look like? Like if we're looking kind of at our brainstorming, do we want to just start by putting our efforts into like, if we want to do just the listening group for the Wabanaki, like for the Wabanaki group, do we want to like kind of flesh them all out? Like kind of what do we want to do there?
It seems as though they would be individually sort of put together because like cultural protocols around engaging with Wabanaki community members is gonna look different
Absolutely.
from other groups, and
Yeah.
the whole sort of like venue of comfort is gonna be different.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So maybe the thing to do is,
Maybe one at a time.
is there could be a couple of people who agree to touch base outside of this meeting and think, and maybe you're people who have particular connections or ideas about how we can sort of start to build out a plan for engagement that has a lot of that context and knowledge and could be informed for some of those where maybe we don't have a lot of connections by making sure that we're checking with people and having conversations and getting some input from people who are not sitting parts of this committee, but have great insight and be building kind of a plan in consultation that way.
I am wondering, this name Gabe that came up with 3 question marks when we talked,
That's
are you that Gabe?
Yeah.
Is that a connection that you feel drawn to make in the first conversation?
So it feels like I can only speak for Wabanaki community members. There's always a lot that's asked of us.
Yeah.
And so it seems like even saying we want to invite you to a listening session is asking a lot.
Yeah.
Because then you're getting into a whole series of things. So it's however you want to structure even the invite and what that looks like. But
Yeah, this committee is supposed to be responsive to the community, and this vehicle came about because the community said we want this vehicle.
right.
So if we are hearing that people want to be heard, then we're trying to make it a space for amplifying. And that's, I think, what we've been overhearing or thinking we were overhearing with this town signage issue and erasure. But we have homework to do as a committee from the documents and the videos shared. And I don't know, maybe that's being heard enough if we like bring that stuff to a meeting and we actually read it into the
Yeah.
record or something. Because right now, I don't know, is it part of the record just because it's in our hands? So we should do something with it. I feel accountable to do
Yeah.
something with it.
That's what Sophie's note at the bottom. It's like, this is technically subject of this law.
But
That's
I mean,
about it.
from
Yeah.
like, from a Wabanaki perspective,
done
right, the question was posed officially to members of Penobscot Nation. They responded. ...
Mhm.
right? So I guess it seems redundant to then say, come back
Mhm.
and tell me again
Yeah,
after I've already done something.
Yeah.
Right,
yeah,
That's huge. That's huge.
Council's court on that right now, right?
Yeah.
Most of the people have let us know how they're feeling about it, and it's kind of
yeah,
yeah.
our turn to respond.
So maybe it may be better to highlight a group that is not kind of waiting for their own answer right now. Because I think that asking questions of a group that's waiting for an answer on something else may not be the
Yeah.
best.
Because you're
Well,
like-
I mean, I think for all of these, the hope and the intention is to not like rush into something just to get
Yeah.
something done, but rather to be taking the time to create relationships
Yeah,
that will sort of bear fruit and allow the town to be connecting authentically in ways that we have not necessarily in the past. And so in my view, that's the goal, and like scheduling things, if that gets in the way of the goal, is not the next step. What are you thinking?
Yeah, absolutely.
I agree. I was just thinking that one of the other conversations we had when we were talking about the EIB committee structure is that the communities that are isolated by their socioeconomic status, right? Impoverished communities and things like that also need to be heard from. And although that is a factor that impacts people across many different groups, the people impacted by low SES have a set of challenges all of their own. So I don't want to add more to your list, but I would love to have that as a focus of one of the listening sessions. So if, before we move on from the subject, that would.
That's a great addition.
What did you call it?
Low SES, socioeconomic status is sort of how the, so I'm moving out of the
SES,
education.
okay.
Yeah.
And if I'm in that, so do I know that acronym?
Well, 25% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch. Or we look across Orono and we think, oh, we live in a, Lake Wobegon or something, but we know we have people in our communities that struggle daily, right? And many of us have had periods in our life where we've struggled. So it is a pervasive issue. And I think it's an issue that leads to generational challenges, right? So I just want to be intentional about mentioning that, although I don't want to put more work on anybody's plate because.
Well, fortunately, there's an ongoing committee that has, signed on to like years potentially of engagement. And so there really is no rush, and also
For that one.
yes.
Yeah, we're sort of like trying to create this sort of like vessel for ideas that we can pull from either now or in the near future. So I would say that like definitely don't worry about like overwhelming us, because I think that like back cataloging is like honestly the best thing I can think of for us. I
It's
think
such a struggle having that conversation though, because like I grew up incredibly poor, and it wasn't something that I would ever go to somebody and say, look, we're really struggling. And
I hear you.
Yeah.
We hide it, right?
yeah,
We hide it incredibly well.
yeah. That's a very important one, but also
Yeah.
a very difficult one to approach.
because I think that some people would, because I also grew up incredibly poor, and I think that one of the things that people don't realize is like sometimes like bodies like towns and stuff like that will approach people who are like low SES who are poor. And they'll say like, hey, tell us about your experiences and we'll offer you resources. But then like the resources are not at all what they actually want or need.
Yeah.
And it sort of feels very transactional, and it can be very uncomfortable in that way. And I feel like that's something that I really want to avoid, because like it's sort of like hi, why are you poor? And it just feels so bad if
It's a
it's done
huge game
badly.
component.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially if you're part of a community that like is still ongoing and people don't like kind of see you as poor, I guess I would say. Like one of the things that like is hard about being like not having a lot of money is really it really changes your mentality of yourself and your direct community and the world around you. And so it's very hard because it warps a lot of your reality. And I think that one of the big things is that I think sometimes it is good to talk about it. I think sometimes it's good to be like, hey, like this is a struggle that I struggle with, but a lot of people don't realize that like if you bring in the concept of talking about it and being open about it, you also have to acknowledge why the shame exists. Why is this something that people are so reticent to volunteer? Like I volunteer that I'm poor, that I'm of low socioeconomic status, because I feel like it benefits me to share that, because it gives context to the type of person that I am and the type of things that I have to say. And I think that people also like it's hard to give people resources and not have it feel transactional. It is still good to have those resources, because I think one of the big things for me is I'm I'll be pretty open about it. I use EBT to make sure I feed the people in my house. Like, it's one of those things where I'm disabled, so I have very harsh limitations on the amount of work that I can do in kind of your standard capitalistic existence right now. I am a pretty limited individual when it comes to having a physical disability and other like mental disabilities. It's hard, and it's one of those things that I probably wouldn't survive without. Like, it's such a crucial supplementary part of my existence right now that I feel like but it still comes with so much shame. It's still like people don't talk about it. Like, you don't go up to someone and you're like, I'm on EBT, because like there's so much stigma and there's so much like nuance. There's so many layers, and that obviously comes additionally for people who are Indigenous or people who are of color. And there's so many layers that get added to that. And I feel like it's just a very much a tread lightly situation.
I want to say also, in this though, I feel like there's a happy medium, because I agree to the fact that it is a very sensitive issue. I myself was raised in a very poor family. I come from a very meager background, but I think that there's also a way to really interact with individuals who are struggling socioeconomically. And so in my own volunteering experience, I see them as strengths rather than just seeing what their needs are. And so a lot of times when I work in the communities, like in the housing projects, I bring about the things that they can teach me and what can I learn from you, rather than pointing out you're poor, you're deficient, you're missing this, you're missing that. If we can develop a way to really build up and really find the beautiful things about these individuals, rather than just saying you're a member of the poverty class, I think that that's what we need to do. I think we need to see people as having strengths rather than just their status that they're currently in financially. Thank you.
To me, it seems this discussion highlights a couple of important things. I mean, I'm glad you're bringing in the low SAS, and it seems to me with each group, if we put them in groups, there's going to be a different approach. There's going to be a different set of needs, understanding that culture, knowing from them what. Like when I think about this particular population, it may be good for most of the people who think this is like, we'll begin to know the facts that it's not, that there are poor people living here. So that may be just an educational message sent to the entire community, as opposed to trying to do a listening session or something like that. So I think each initiative targeted to whoever may require a crafted approach, a thoughtful approach. And I also think too, beyond the committee, like if these ideas were fleshed out a little bit more, I'm still, I guess, representing the university. I know that there's a weekly meeting where a representative or two from this committee could take this list and go to that meeting and say, hey, is there any time, energy, or interest or inclination to partner with us in some way to work on this? So that's one thought, rather than focusing on one thing, sort of try to reach out in a way to different groups or peoples to see what's the time, energy, interest that you might have in developing something.
I think sourcing interest is definitely something that would be probably the most beneficial, because as you said, if like there's a group that has displayed that they are not interested in this current conversation, and that is something that may be true for other groups. Other groups may be like, I don't want to talk about my thing, whatever it may be, whatever my identification is. Goodness. Maybe I don't want to talk about it. And so I think that going to these groups and saying like, hey, is this something you want to have a conversation about, and seeing directly who says, yes, I want to talk about this, and then kind of from there gauging how much they want to talk about it, how they want to talk about it. But I think that that's both kind of that as an overarching topic, and then that also kind of relating back to the Wabanaki group. I think it definitely, that should be our first initiative, is do these people even want to talk to us?
Well, I think directly in terms of Wabanaki, it's really Penobscot Nation, right? That's really, you're in Penobscot territory.
Yeah.
Right.
The Chief Orono has direct ties to that community. Sometimes it can even be offensive to be like, oh, Wabanaki, and you're actually talking about their community and their issue.
Yeah,
Understood?
that's helpful,
Thank you.
helpful context. So.
I was thinking some part of this is self-reflection on the committee, but like we're educating ourselves a little bit. How to-
I think that's the benefit
Yeah.
of bringing in people as well, and I think that that ties into something I kind of wanted to like spark kind of an idea into. Was kind of having like little Q&A types. Just like in these meetings where we like bring in different people who like wanna talk about whatever their thing is. And just like, they aren't meant to be a representative body, they're just meant to be the individual who talks about whatever their identifications are, whether that looks at overlapping identifications or there's just one that they wanna talk about. But I think that that could bring some fun kind of like micro Q&A sessions to this type of thing where we bring people in and we kind of have a set of questions and we like have people just kind of talk about themselves and their relationship to the town of Orono, because I think that that would highlight a lot of stuff that we saw in Malcolm's initial survey, because I think that then we could kind of get an idea of like not only, because I feel like we are somewhat forced in a way to generalize people into their groups as a way to represent them. And I think it might be fun to have a little bit of like what are the people of Orono actually like? Like
Yeah.
what is Orono like?
Yeah.
And kind of beyond like us, like
I
what
mean,
does that look like?
One thing that I try to think about is making sure that in any sort of interaction, you're interacting with an individual human being, and yes, they might have a certain identity that is important to them, but
Yeah.
also like thinking less about people as a group and always sort of being mindful of the fact that there's a lot of diversity within the way we categorize people is really helpful.
I was
Yeah.
struggling with the language. I was struggling with the language I was using too.
Yeah.
I use the word group.
I just sure that we're sort of, while we're representing people, we're also still acknowledging the intersectionality
Yeah.
of what it means to be just a person. Cause like,
Yeah.
obviously, like I'm a disabled person, but I'm also a queer person and I'm also like someone who's engaged and I'm a pet owner and like there's so many facets of me. And I wanna make sure that we don't sort of boil people down too much.
Absolutely. I want to say one other thing too, and that is that I would love in these listening sessions to hear from somebody that identifies as having a disability, particularly when it comes to the accessibility of the University of Maine. I think that that is something in our community that we really need to be honest about. And it's just a thought that I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle.
Yeah,
Several folks have mentioned the university tonight in a, like, something sort of way. Is that something where a report out or a table of people from UMaine wanna like join us for one of these meetings and like talk about what their approach is to these intersecting issues? And
I mean, I'm fairly sure highlighting Danielle's issue that there is like a group of like disabled, like there's a club that highlights people with different disabilities. I'm not sure what it's called off the top of my head.
That's the Office of Success.
Yeah, I think there's a club.
They've
though, that,
taken
like,
the word,
branches off them.
they've taken the word disability out of the name of that office, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah, the director is very active and very much a strong advocate. I'm sure she'd love to talk to us. Well,
cause I'd definitely be
I'm not
interested
sure.
in like hearing from students.
So, lots of good ideas and wide-ranging conversation.
Right.
I'm wondering if we can sort of return to this question of listening sessions at a further meeting and each of us take upon ourselves as some homework to be sleeping on this and thinking about how we want to sort of hold building relationships with intention as we look forward to this, and we can be in touch. There's again, we sort of group emails where we're like getting work done remotely is a little bit complicated with open meeting law with this group, because we're sort of designated part of the town council apparatus. But individual people can call each other between meetings and be kind of brainstorming and dreaming on our own, and
Yeah, it's
And I'll touch
up
base
to
about
2
this soon.
people.
That's
or less.
actually something I would like to propose for
Mhm.
an agenda item, a discussion, because Sophie was talking about a particular kind of group.
Mhm.
I think it was called the Orono Village Association, that wasn't under the same guidelines as one that's been designated by the council.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if that kind of a group would fit us better. I think it's worth a discussion, because it might
Yeah.
be more open to others coming.
Yeah, we did talk about sort of redesignating our kind of our label.
I think it's the classification. of-
Yeah, that's the word I was
It's
looking
certainly
for.
something that we could chat about. I think there are real advantages to being kind of a sort of official project of the town council, and that gives this group some credibility where the town council is like here listening to us. And I wouldn't want to necessarily, I guess I'd be cautious about losing this group's mandate and the kind of there's sort of a lot of social capital kind of power in this group, despite it not having a lot of like structural decision-making power.
I think
But
that's
I
why I wanted-
also think that there would be some clear logistical advantages to having it be a different kind of group. And so we could certainly think about it as a conversation.
That's what I
Yeah.
was proposing, just
Yeah.
to hear the pros and cons.
Yeah, those are some of the pros and cons off the top of my head. If we want to have a deeper conversation about it, we certainly can.
I'd love to get like a more formal
Mhm.
list together of like your pros, here's cons, and really
Yeah.
sort of be able to kind of dissect
Yeah,
what it
and-
means both ways.
I could try to draft that and also sort of circulate it to other folks in town and get some input if you all want a
I'd
little
love
bit
to.
more of a pro and con list.
Yeah,
I'd love to live into it for a year and then have this
And then
informed
evaluate.
conversation. Because it seemed like what this formal establishment was responding to was the ask of the community to have a formally established group.
Mhm.
So I don't know exactly all that we can do with this yet, but we won't know until we try. So I think I want
A
to
good
kind of
point.
live into it.
Yeah.
How old is this group?
very, very
3
young.
months.
Oh.
Yeah, pretty new, welcome.
Honestly,
4 months.
Toddler,
That means we have a meeting.
Yes.
honestly, I would think I agree with Malcolm. I
Mm.
think that
I think it's a good.
And
idea.
that's definitely something I think that Sophie highlighted is the idea that I do think that sort of we're sort of the baby bird under the town council's mother bird type thing, and we have to become an adult bird before we do our own thing.
All right.
Yeah, we're 6 months.
Does everyone feel comfortable kind of keeping the format as is for now? We'll reevaluate in a year if it seems like open meeting law is too much of a bother. Okay, great. Anything else on listening sessions tonight, or can we kind of move on to our next point of conversation, which is,
Is there a next step on the listening sessions?
yeah,
I think at the moment, probably not. I think we may need more space for conversation.
I guess.
I think so.
All right, so maybe put it like on our, do we want to put it on our next things agenda as
Yeah.
something to talk about again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely
okay.
need to read
Lori, are you taking notes and putting this down as a next things agenda item? I can also do this if that,
And just a
I
caution
have
in my mind is there is only one more meeting before the November 5th thing.
yes, so we're gonna need some time for barbecue planning next meeting too.
Right.
Woo.
I think we can do both.
I hope so. And all right, so if we have already an action packed next meeting, let's So I guess time check, it's 7 o'clock. This, I think, meeting is scheduled for an hour and a half. We all good to go for the next?
I always thought it
No,
was,
do you-
yeah,
you
I always thought
okay?
it, I
All
thought
right.
it was an hour when this came out.
Oh, is it only an hour?
Yeah, because
I think it's an hour and a half, sorry.
you do,
Yeah, that's what I was told.
I'm remembering Leah's voice and I
Oh,
was
okay.
remembering.
Oh, Leah definitely might have advocated it for it to be only an hour.
Oh, that's
Well, what would we like to do?
What do we need to talk about?
Okay, so the other things that are on our agenda is further discussion. We've referenced this document that was circulated via email to this group that
Yes.
is kind of a history of the town council's process around changing signage in town and also sort of making some documents acknowledging sort of Wabanaki or Penobscot history in town. And that's a big topic and there's a lot of stuff there. I guess I'm curious, did we within the last couple of days have an opportunity to go back and watch any of those council
I didn't get a
meetings?
chance to get through all of it, and I
Yeah.
think that that would be something I'd like to put a pin in
Yeah.
so that I can thoroughly get through the material.
So I
Could
think,
we call our own special meeting to digest that all?
I
in a
think that
public
we
way?
could. Yeah, I think we totally could. So do we want to do that? Or should we try to meet in 2 weeks, having like taken the time to having noted, oh my gosh, there's a lot to look at here, actually gone back, watched a bunch of town council meetings, and then really come prepared to do some due diligence by this special topic?
Yeah.
Great.
So
Okay.
let's put a date on that
Let's
then.
put a date on that then. When are we free to meet? Is a Tuesday at 6 another week a good thing?
September
Yeah,
26th.
September 26th works for me.
All right.
Oh, actually, I might be in Denver. I could zoom in.
Okay.
We're on the 25th.
It is on the 25th.
Just wanted to check.
That's why I'm in Denver, lol.
So is everybody good for 26?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, great.
I guess we'll need to check with the town schedule about this room in particular, but in the event that this room was not available, we could also, I'm sure, find a room at the library or the Keith Anderson Center or find another place to meet. We
That
just
can be
need to,
managed.
we need to notify it as a sort of town meeting and give people the
Yes, yeah.
opportunity to come. So, great. Other things on the subject or on the agenda to finish up? It's an opportunity for public comment. Are there any members of the public who would like to make public comment? I don't see any online, so I think we're good.
Not that I-
Um,
Any of you folks have any comments that you would like to make?
we've already talked about some agenda items for our next meeting
Yes.
and,
Add one,
great.
which I will reference the email where I was thinking out loud about this. I want to ask a question at this month's meeting to be discussed or addressed somehow at a future meeting. This is about a settlement of a lawsuit
Yeah.
brought against the town of Orono by the Human Rights Commission. And I think that the facts of that case should be public record.
Yes, there is a Human Rights Commission settlement that the town has recently settled, and that is a matter of public record. And so if this group would like to see the documents related to that case, we can,
I think the best way to do it.
Share them.
Just as you.
Yeah.
Liaison, make the request to Sophie, she can send the public document to everybody.
great.
I'd like to make
the-
that
And the council is getting some guidance about
public.
about the protocols around
Public on the web.
discussions that we're allowed to have.
Thanks
So
for making.
by the time you meet, you'll have all that. But the document is public and that can be shared with you.
So our next regular meeting would be October 10th.
Yes.
Okay.
Does that timing fit to put that on the agenda to hear from town council person about it or just bring it up again and we'll figure out what to do?
Yeah, because we're waiting on the date that we can meet with our attorney to get,
So that may be
it's gonna be sooner rather than later. It's not like
Yeah.
2 months down the road. It's like a matter of weeks. I just don't know
All right.
So
So-
probably then.
So for, I'm hearing for our October meeting, we want to talk, we want to get our ducks in a row for our barbecue potluck concept. We want to talk about this human rights case and documents related to that. And we want to return to the topic of listening sessions. One final thing is, who would like to facilitate this next meeting? Malcolm, could I tap you to do it?
Yes.
Great. I remember you being on the fence about doing this one or something. So, okay, great.
I'm sorry, did you
Passing-
say October what?
You gonna volunteer?
No, I'm not volunteering. I'm asking October what?
10th.
That is
And
student break,
Thank you.
isn't that student break?
I'm not sure.
Excellent question, but I will tell you right in like 20 minutes.
20 minutes.
Well, it takes a hot second for the thing to load.
It is, it may be break. It's Indigenous Peoples'
Usually
Day, the day
But it's only
prior.
not, it's not the Monday and Tuesday of that week.
October. Yep, that is fall break. So, do we feel okay meeting the evening that is the Tuesday at the end of fall break? Students, I
affect
guess
me.
this is mostly a question for student presence.
I mean, assuming the dorms aren't closed.
They're
I
not.
think the
Yeah.
doors won't be closed. You're good? Okay, great. So Tuesday, October 10th at 6 PM. See you back here,
We need to.
Oh.
also-
assuming that this works with the town schedule.
Who's
So
convening our very next meeting, which is September 26th on the special topic.
I can run the digest meeting.
Is the one on the 10th an hour and a half?
I feel like just an hour. I feel just an hour.
Yeah, so basically here's what I know. So basically, we technically, as a unit, as like a thing we lodged with the town, we technically have an hour and a half. We tend not to use the entirety of the hour and a half. It tends to just be an hour. We usually get through things, and it seems to be kind of colloquially an hour.
I think we get to decide is the answer to that. Yeah,
Okay.
We've carved out an hour and a
I
half.
have,
but you
I
just-
have two little girls that are very dependent on concrete information.
Great.
When I give them, I've already.
I thank
We'll
you.
give them an hour then.
Seems like you guys don't, I mean, I would just give an hour and a half because they're, I mean, then you're safe if you get home
Yeah.
early, right?
Are we available to eat for an hour and a, meet for an hour and a half?
Yes, I am personally.
How about like thumbs down, thumbs sideways? Okay,
Like it's 75%.
75%.
I am
I'd also
probably making
say
that.
that Leah probably would also be a no with her baby at home.
That's probably true. Let's try to keep it to an hour, but be especially mindful going forward that we have some people who are taking time out of really busy lives, and the most, as brief, there's a trade-off, I know, between
There's also some very rich content.
rich content and also thank you for being here and staying late. And to all of you, thank you for being here and staying late.
All for being here.
Yes.
I'm not gonna lie, I thought we were gonna go until 8.
Um,
Thank you all.
Yeah.
Have a fantastic week and see you next month or later.
Really
Okay,
curious
great.
if it's
Thank
soup
you.
for a patch or if he broke something. I hope he broke
Digest
something,
meeting.
because then I can laugh
I
at
don't
him.
wanna have it in general.
I think it
Welcome.
would be pretty